Hi folks, it's just gone 2 p.m. on the 20th of July 2020. I just seen the normal little clip that you get after a football match, certainly after a defeat. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer saying the usual rubbish. It's 30 seconds, so I'll play it because hopefully that'll be okay. It's from the Man United Twitter account. They released it on Twitter, so it's available to everyone. So I'll just play this quickly, then I'll comment on it.
What did you make of this performance in general?
1 second.
Very disappointed. We had a first half that we expected. Two teams that knew each other really well, waited a bit for each other. Nothing really happened until the long layoff and their goal. And of course, that's disappointing that we go into halftime with 1-0 down. But tried to make a change, positive change, but it didn't work. What did you?
Now, okay. We've got the first half we expected, is what he said. Right? Now, either he's lying or he set the team up to stop Chelsea. Now, okay. One disappointing thing for me about managers, and this is pretty much every manager, is that generally speaking, you won't get the managers coming out saying, look, I'm mucked up. I put 5 at the back. I shouldn't have done that because it did impact our attack, and we didn't quite have the attacking force that we have in the last few games, or last 19 games where we've been undefeated. We didn't have that attacking force in this game because I put 5 at the back. If he'd have come out and said that, you would have gone, okay, great. He might be learning. At least he knows what he did wrong. That's good. When he comes out with that sort of rubbish, he tried to make a change at half time. Yeah, well, actually, I'm not even sure what change he made at half time. I don't think he did make a change at half time. What I recall of watching the game, second half, United came out and played exactly the same way. Later in the second half, when he brought on Pogba and Greenwood, and tried to play the way he brought on Martial as well a bit earlier. So he tried to get the team back to the normal team, first 11. So he took off the players that weren't really part of that first 11. They replaced him with the first 11 players. But did that really change anything? He had to go with 4 at the back because Bailly was injured. So that really wasn't a choice that he made. That was something they were forced to do because they didn't have a natural replacement. So they put Martial on instead to try and have a bit more an attack. But the problem is you still had Fred in midfield, who was going nowhere. You still had James, who was going nowhere. The whole team was still heavily defensive in its makeup. And people have been right. They've commented on Wan-Bissaka saying that Chelsea did everything they could to unsettle him, to press him when he got the ball, because he's not good in attack. He's not good on the ball at all. He's a great defender. His tackling is superb, but on the ball, he's really, really poor. But again, the manager should be really pointing this stuff out. You don't go slagging off your players. Yeah, that's okay. We understand that. But take responsibility. Take responsibility. Why put James up front? When United had the ball, Chelsea sat deep. There was no room for James to do anything, really. United were trying to look for the ball to go over the back 4, to run in forwards, and that was never going to work because they were playing so deep. Had they played with Igalo up front, that would have made a difference, potentially at least. It would have given us a better option because they could have played the ball up to him. He's better at holding up the ball. James is useless at it, so is Rashford. So he made mistakes. Ollie, made mistakes. It would have been refreshing had he have come out and said, yeah, I made mistakes in this game. I chose 5 at the back. I chose the wrong players up front for this sort of game. Yeah, I was thinking more about the games coming up for the Premier League. If he had just said that would have been fine. People would have gone, oh, okay. At least he understands. But when he comes out and says that sort of rubbish that he said, it's like, oh, Jesus. Really? It doesn't give fans of Man United much hope when a manager comes out and basically says, oh, well, these things happen. How is that useful? How is that giving the fans... Put it this way, we're talking about a manager who from March till February could not turn things around at all. United were poor. They'd basically forgotten how to play football. They were struggling massively. Fred, who happens to be a straightforward midfield centre, so not really good attacking midfielder, not a good defensive midfielder, just someone who sits there in midfield and does a few bits and pieces, looked as if he could be the best player in the season because he was doing better. He looked good amongst the rest of them. Right? The attack was poor. The attackers, Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, James, Igalo, they looked poor until Bruno came. Once Bruno came and had his first couple of games, then things started to turn around again. But really from March to that point, I mean, last season we were in a situation around February where it looked as if we would be a certainty for the top 4. A certainty. And yet they flopped it. And they flopped it because teams figured him out. And once teams figured him out that he was a counter-attacking manager, and that was really all he could do, he had no idea. He could not change things around. He could not figure out how to get the team playing in a way that would get results or on a consistent basis that would get them playing well. He just had no idea. And this is a manager who we're supposed to trust to turn things around now. Now things have started going badly with Crystal Palace, Southampton, even Norwich. Wasn't a great game really, was it? But that was the reserves. But we're talking about the first team. So Crystal Palace, Southampton, and Chelsea. Suddenly getting worse. Crystal Palace wasn't great really. Southampton, we barely got a result out of that one, and then we got beat. So things are starting to go downhill again, and then the manager comes out and says, well, yeah, we expected to be crap in the first half. We expected to have Chelsea come at us and press us, and for us to be basically useless at the game of football in the first half. Really? You expected that? Then why did you set them out in that way? If you expected that. But let's be fair to him. Maybe that's not quite what he's saying. Maybe. I think I was being just a tad disingenuous to him there. But again, managers just stand up and say, yeah, I got it wrong. Yeah, I should have done this when I did this. That would be wonderful for fans because then fans could say, okay, we've got a manager who's honest. We've got a manager who's taking responsibility. So if he's taking responsibility, maybe the players will. I mean, if you've got a manager who's deluded and thinks that, oh, well, I did the right thing. It's just that everyone else was doing the wrong thing. Then the players are going to be thinking the same, aren't they? They're not exactly going to take responsibility for what they're doing wrong. There's no way De Gea is going to sort out his attitude and sort out his issue, whatever that is. There's no way that Maguire is going to figure out that, hold it, I didn't really need to go into the challenge with Bailly because Bailly had it covered. I don't need to go for every blinking ball. I need to be wise here. I made mistakes. Lindelof, again, needs to accept that, there are things he's not good at. So he needs to figure out how he can play in a way where he plays to his strengths and his weaknesses aren't shown up. If you can't do that, go to another club. Go to a club where that sort of defending, that sort of mistake is seen as okay. But it starts with the manager. If the manager is accepting responsibility, then maybe the others will. We have manager like we had Jose who wouldn't accept responsibility. It's always everyone else's fault. Van Gaal wouldn't accept responsibility. And then we've got Ollie who comes out and says that. It's like when he comes out and says he's got the backing of the board, to get the players, and you can go and get any player they want, and then of course they don't. Last summer they didn't. They brought in James and Agallo and Maguire, but Maguire, Jesus, really, Maguire? Again, no disrespect to that. He played well at Leicester. He's doing well, but that really is his level. Now, saying that, let's be real. Leicester are still above United. I know goal difference right now, but they're still above United. So saying that Leicester's level is, again, seeming a bit silly. My point of it is that Leicester is a club that doesn't really expect to be challenging for the title. They seem to be flying high right now because Arsenal, Tottenham, Man United and Chelsea are rebuilding and doing a pretty poor job of it right now. So therefore, there was always a possibility that a club of the lower level would come up, because the teams that were normally up there would be coming down. And that's what's happened. And Leicester are that club. But Leicester really are a top 10 at best club. Really. If every club was showing to the potential of their club, Leicester would be probably bottom 10, really. And that's the level of Maguire. That's where he should be in a team of that level, because he's not got the pace. His reading of the game is quite poor. It was like yesterday, he was trying to wrestle with the Chelsea forward, which is like, excuse me, you're just giving free kicks away all the time. What are you doing? Do you not realise that referees penalise that? You're supposed to be the captain of the club. You haven't got a clue, have you? So, no, I mean, Wan-Bissaka, again, great defensively. Going forward, I'm sure United could have got a better player than Wan-Bissaka for the money. For the money, I'm talking. They had something about they want to buy English. They went for Maguire, Wan-Bissaka and James. Now, Igalo was a panic buy right at the end because they were looking at Rashford and Martial to basically do everything for a whole season. With Greenwood maybe coming and do a few bits, they realised that that's probably not going to work. So Igalo was basically last second, wasn't it, in the window? So it was really 3 English players. Now, James was not a bad deal, but again, you go look in Europe at European players, you spend that sort of money on a European player, you could get someone who's far more consistent than James, far better with regards to skill, consistency, etc. Maguire, 85 million. You're going to spend 85 million on a central defender that's European, you're going to get a far better central defender than Maguire. Even a right back or right wing back. You spend that sort of money, how much was it? About 50 million for Wan-Bissaka? Go and spend 50 million on a wing back, right back sort of player. In Europe, you can get a far better player, Wan-Bissaka. someone who can be nearly as good defensively, but so much better offensively. So really, yeah, if these are the players that Ollie wanted, then someone has to question, why on earth are you going for English? Yeah, they don't seem to have an immense passion that they're playing for Man United, an English club. They don't seem to have that because they don't seem to. Yeah, I remember when I first started supporting United, you had players like Lou Macari who would play as if he was willing to die for the club. He would get involved in games and he'd have cracked head and bandages with blood bleeding from his head, still carry on, still going for the challenges. Wouldn't wimp out of anything. So there's a player that you think, okay, that player is someone who loves the club. He's willing to die for the club. With most of these British players, it's still a case where they're just playing for a club. Simple. You don't see them thinking, okay, I'm playing for Manchester United. I need to give 120% every week. I need to work incredibly hard in training. I need to stay later than anyone else. Look at Ronaldo. Ronaldo did that. Ronaldo came in earlier and then everyone else stayed later and everyone else practice. He wanted to be the best in the world, so he put the work in. Now, can we honestly say that we're seeing Wan-Bissaka put the work in at his attacking work? Is he putting the work in? Well, if he is and it's not working, then I'd stick him as a central defender or stick him as a defensive midfielder. He'd do a better job there. A far better job there where he doesn't need to do that much in attack. But so if it's not working and he's training that hard and he's really, really trying to get these attacking and his ball control and his passing and he's running and he's crossing, if he's trying to get all that so much better and it just isn't working, then it's like, okay, change his position because he's not really going to work as a right back. Other teams are going to look at Chelsea. They're going to look and see how Chelsea dealt with Wan-Bissaka and they're going to do exactly the same. They're going to press him when he's got the ball. He's going to fluff it. He's going to give the ball away. And that's going to cause huge problems for the team. But to me, I think any player, if you want to be the best in the world or the best in the country or the best in your field, best in your position, then you're paid to play football. That's what you're paid to do. So work at it. Practice. Look at people like Ronaldo. Look at the best players in the world. Look at how they got there. They didn't play or train and then go home and sit in a jacuzzi or whatever. They worked their butt off. They trained. Like Ronaldo as a kid used to go down the halls of United with a football and kicking the football around, dribbling, practicing his dribbling. So he got to a point where he could dribble the ball around player after player after player after player after player. Where defenders were scared of him because they knew what he could do. Because he put the work in. So it's like, But again, what does that come down to? The manager, really. I mean, the manager of United, especially someone who didn't really come through the system, but he was there during a time when United won the treble and when he saw players coming through who worked incredibly hard, like Ronaldo. He was there when Ronaldo came through. I'm pretty sure he wasn't he? I'm pretty sure he was still there in some role, whether it's as a coach or as a player when Ronaldo came through the system. And so he saw the work Ronaldo put in. He's seen where Ronaldo's got to, so he would know. When he's talking to players like Greenwood, when he was talking to players like Chong and Gomez and all those players, Lingard when he was younger. I mean, Lingard, and again, A player who has completely and utterly wasted the opportunity he's had. Completely wasted it. If Lingard wasn't British, would he still be at United? Another point, if he didn't have a brown skin, would he still be at United? That's a fair point to ask. If he was pinky skinned, like Makeda was pinky skinned, and at United he had a few good games, but because he was a bit inconsistent, they got rid of him. They didn't get rid of Lingard, did they? Although Lingard has been far more inconsistent than Makeda was. So in that degree, you can claim that it may have been racist them selling Makeda and not keeping him to just sit around earning a lovely bit of money on the subs bench, or even not even on the subs bench. Lingard wasn't even on the subs bench in the game against Chelsea. He's a player that just doesn't offer enough. Pereira, again, has been kept. He's a player that just doesn't offer enough. Get rid of them. Sell them for whatever you can sell them for. That's the reality of the situation. I mean, to me, if United are going to move forward, somebody put a message on earlier on Twitter saying that they really think United need a centre-back, defensive midfielder, maybe Sancho. That with those three players, United could compete. I'm like, no. There's no way, shape or form United can compete with three more players. You get an injury to, a couple of injuries to those players, United are back where they are now, which is not in a great position. I mean, even if you look at the league now, it wouldn't be a true picture of what the league could have been, because really, since Liverpool have won the league, they've taken their foot off the pedal. Really, but even now, they're 31 points ahead of United. And the last 4 games, they really have stopped playing properly, really. They've drawn a couple where they've lost one. They've not really bothered. They could be far more than 31 points ahead. I mean, City have been poor, to say the least, and they're 13 points ahead. There's a big gap for United to try and close. 3 players is just not enough. There's no way, shape or form that 3 players is enough to close that huge gap. Even getting, okay, if you got the perfect players to come into United to close that gap, then it might work. But you would have to get the perfect players, the players that fitted the system. Now, the problem is, there's even a doubt as to, is there really a system? Do United really have a system? Or is it simply a case where, they just try and counter-attack or attack quickly against teams that are attacking us? And that's how they manage to get results. I mean, that in a way is a system. But, you're going to have to bring players in that are going to be spot on to that, the perfect player, and then hope they don't get injured. Hope none of the first 11 don't get injured for long periods of time. But still, you've only then got the 3 players you bring in. That gives you 3 quality subs. But you've still got another 4 subs that just aren't good enough. That when they come in, they just don't offer enough. That suddenly the quality of the team goes down because those players are coming in. And that, to me, is the problem. At the moment, we've got a whole subs bench, really, that when those subs come on, the quality just goes down. And with that being the case, adding 3 or even 4 players is not going to make that much of a difference, because really that creates 3 or 4 subs that are better. They can come in and you won't notice a drop, but you've still got a load of squad players that you will notice one heck of a drop. You have to use them in the season. So, I mean, yeah, again, you need a good manager. So is Ollie a good manager? Is he the manager to do it? Yeah, like Goldbridge said earlier, United Stan Goldbridge said earlier, it's not like Ollie has suddenly become a bad manager. When was he a good manager? I'm not saying he's a terrible manager, but when was he a good manager? When was he anywhere near the quality of manager that Man United should have? He wasn't. He's never been that. So he wouldn't suddenly become a bad manager. Between March and February, March last year and February this year, people were thinking Ollie is a bad manager, that he's not a good manager in any way, shape or form. It's only because we've gone on a decent run since Bruno arrived. And it's like, what it does seem is that when football came back after lockdown, some teams were struggling early on. Chelsea was struggling; they were losing games. Leicester, Sheffield United, teams that were flying really before the lockdown, have struggled. Wolves have struggled since. Whereas United were playing well at the start. Maybe this is simply where they are going through the struggle that the other teams had at the beginning. They're going through it now. The problem that I have is the difficulty there is when United was struggling before, it took Ollie nearly a year. I mean, if he was the one that turned things around at the club and not Bruno, it took him nearly a year to turn things around, to get the team playing good again. So now we're starting to struggle again. Could it be another year? I mean, if that's the case, next season, forget about it. Because you go July, then another year to maybe May, then that's the whole of next season gone, isn't it? Really. Right at the end of the season, United then start playing well again. So what's the point in that? Sack Ollie. Get rid of him. Nah. Oh dear. Yeah. That's the thing. You look at it from that point of view, especially from the point of view that, the manager, as I said at the start, is coming out talking complete nonsense about the game that we just lost 3-1, where we didn't really show up at all in the game. Where we were pretty much, as I say, most of the players, all the players really, none of them, if you score them out of 10, would get over a 5 for that game. None of them. I saw people on the United stand giving the scores, and a few of them even got a minus. De Gea got a -1. How can you get a -1? But one of them gave De Gea -1. A few of them got a 0. Ollie, I think, scored a 2. 2 out of 10. I don't know what the 2 was for. He made changes. He brought the right players on at around about 70 minutes. And should that be something he gets points for? No. Did it turn the game around? No. A 0 for him as well, really. But if he'd have come out after the game saying, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have started off with a back 3. Should have been a back 4. I should have started off playing the way we've been playing recently, where we've actually been, the last 19 games playing well. I should have said, this is the way we've been playing, this is where we've been successful, where we haven't lost. Let's continue that. Let's see, let's give Chelsea some problems. Let's go after their attack. Let's go after their defence side. Because really you got the Chelsea attack that really 2 centre-backs should have been able to deal with that. Should have been able to deal with that. Easily, Giroud, is it? Giroud, yeah. He's not quick. He's not immensely skillful. They whack the ball up to him. He holds it up. That's fine. Let him do that. play a higher line. So therefore, what can you do from there? Yeah, you've got Williams on the left, you've got Wan-Bissaka on the right. Keep them a bit more disciplined. To be able to get back when they come into attack, or central defenders hold things up to give them a chance to get back. Then you've got the quick players on the left and the right who can track any runners. But no, he comes out and acts as if it's just one of those things. Yeah. Eventually we lost. It's a style. It's also the Crystal Palace Southampton games, the style we were playing now. We started to lose. Okay, somebody might say, well, it's understandable, therefore, that Ollie changed things then. He tried the 5 at the back because the way things were going, the way we were playing normally, we started to struggle in the last few games. But we struggled a damn sight worse against Chelsea. So, yeah. You take care. I will speak to you soon. God bless. Bye-bye.